The calf is the foundation of the future herd, which signifies the importance of proper calf management or calf rearing. Selection of replacement for culled cows can only be effective if good replacement heifers are available and in enough numbers to allow for more rigid selection. A good feeding and management program will result in lower deaths, replacement heifers that start production early, and fast growth resulting in rapid genetic improvement. So how do we do management before birth? As calf management begins before birth, a few days before the calf is born, the pregnant cow is transferred to a maternity paddock, which should be near the homestead, which is well watered and free from physical objects. The signs of imminent calving include filling of udder with milk and is turgid. The vulva is swollen with a string of mucus hanging from the vagina. Insemination records can be used to estimate the expected calving date. How do we do management at calving? So after the calf is born, ensure the calf is breathing. Should breathing not commence, the calf should be assisted by removing mucus from nostrils, and if breathing does not start, then hold the calf by hind legs upside down and swing several times. The umbilical cord should be disinfected using disinfectant, that is iodine or copper sulfate solution. If the calf is unable to suckle, it should be assisted and allowed to suckle colostrum from the dam of the mother at will during the first week. Any excess colostrum should be milked and stored or fed fresh to other calves. During the second week of life and thereafter, the calf should be separated from the mother and fed by hand. So, feeding of the calf, how do we do it? Here, the primary concern in rearing the newborn calf is to ensure it remains healthy. Feeding management should also be directed at addressing nutrient requirements and encouraging rumen development. So, while designing a calf feeding program, the aim should be to reduce the death rate while maintaining a growth rate of about 400 to 500 grams per day. The growth rate will vary with breeds. For the bigger breeds, the aim should be to wean the calf at 3 months. That is at approximately 80 kilograms per body weight. So in the phases of calf feeding, the aim should be to switch the young calves to cheaper feeds as early as possible so that more milk can be available for sale. Okay. However, the diet must be able to promote health and growth. So in a calf feeding program, there are many factors that should be considered, and there are about 4 or 5 major ones. I'll be naming them. One of the factors to consider is to know that the calf has low immunity at birth and therefore must be given colostrum. The colostrum has antibodies that protect the calf against diseases, and the mother has the diseases that the mother has been exposed to, and their absorption, you should note this, their absorption is highest within 12 hours after birth and very low after 24 hours. As such, the calf must suckle colostrum immediately after birth, and if necessary, it should be given a nipple bottle. The calf depends on the colostrum antibodies for about 2 weeks when it develops its own immunity. If new animals are introduced in the herd before calving, it might be necessary to vaccinate them against common diseases so that they can develop antibodies and pass them to their own newborns. The second factor to consider is that the newborn calf is dependent on milk for nutrition and growth in its early life, as the rumen is not functional. The suckling reflex forms a groove, which forms as a pipe for delivering the milk straight from the esophagus to the abomasum of the young calves, that is, bypassing the other four stomachs. Therefore, young calves should only be fed on liquid diets, as the groove will not allow solids to pass. The other factor you should consider when coming up with a calf feeding program is that calves secrete high amounts of lactase enzymes that breaks down the lactose in milk to glucose and galactose to supply energy. The other carbohydrate digesting enzyme are low, and therefore milk which has high lactose level should be fed to calves. So during formulation of milk replacers, the energy source should be milk lactose. Calves have no sucrase enzymes and should not be fed on sucrose. Like, when I say sucrose, I mean like ordinary sugar. Now, since the rumen is not functional, the calf cannot synthesize the B vitamins, and they must be supplied in the diet. The diet of the newborn calf should contain milk proteins, since enzymes to break down complex proteins do not develop until around 7 to 10 days after birth. The other factor is that you should introduce calves to solid feeds. As calf is introduced to solid feed, the rumen will start to develop, and the calf can be weaned as soon as it can consume enough dry feeds. That is around 1.5% of its body weight. It should be noted that dry feed should not be introduced. It should be noted that dry feed should be introduced early, as solid feeds is required for rumen development. Grain-based diets promote faster growth of rumen papillae, that is, which promotes rumen function compared to roughages. Okay, then we have different calf feeding methods. After the first week, during which the calf is left with the dam, several methods can be used for feeding depending on ease and convenience. One of those methods, the first one that we said, was single suckling, whereby the calf is separated with the mother, but during milking is brought to suckle. The amount of milk the calf consumes is difficult to quantify using this method. Some farmers will allow the calf to suckle 1/4. This method is rarely used in commercial dairies. The disadvantage is that the calf is not present. If the calf is not present, then the cow may not let down all the milk. This method is best in terms of hygiene, as calf gets clean milk at body temperature. You know, every method has its own advantages and disadvantages. The other calf feeding method is using a foster mother or multiple suckling. In farms with several cows, where several cows give birth at the same time, one cow can be assigned to a number of calves depending on milk production. The calves suckle in turns, ensuring that each calf only suckles the designated quota. This method is not practical in small scale farms. Alright. The other method is nipple suckling, whereby a plastic nipple is attached to a clean bottle filled with milk, and the calf is trained on how to suckle. An alternative is to attach a nipple on a short plastic hose pipe and insert the same into a bucket. The calf is then trained on how to suckle. Another method is using bottle feeding. The milk is placed in a clean bottle and the calf is fed directly from the bottle. This method is tedious and slow if many calves are to be fed, and there is a high likelihood of milk going to the lungs via the trachea. The other method is bucket feeding. This is the most commonly used method, and milk is placed in a bucket and the calf is trained to drink. How do you train this?